Dallas Cowboys against the Atlanta Falcons. A battle between two teams off to a fast start. Here, too, the big stories at quarterback. Veteran Danny White has a pulled hip muscle, and if he's forced to sit down, the burden will fall on his backup, the lightly tested Steve Pallur. Down there, we'll have that story when the NFL Today continues in just a moment. Dan Henning is our head coach 3 years ago. The folks down in Georgia had visions that the South would rise again, and instead the Falcons continued to flutter through losing seasons on a wing and a prayer. But now, as Jimmy the Greek tells us, the fans in Atlanta have reason to be whistling Dixie.
Archer has the ball stripped away.
Peter Brock dancing, now throwing. It's complete. Ellard has breaks two tackles. Ellard is loose. Woo!
Last year and the year before, if we got behind, we'd say, oh no, here it goes again. But now we have an offense that can score at any time, and the defense has been real consistent this year. And those are things that have been pulling us through so far.
And Lomax will throw from the end zone. No, he will not. Safety.
This year, the long wait may be over in Atlanta. After 3 sad seasons, the Falcons are finally putting it together for Coach Dan Henning. And let me say that I told you so.
I've got a great hunch about that. I think they're going to keep Henning, bring Marion Campbell down. No, I'm telling you, this is funny.
Boy. Even under the gun for 2, 4, and 12 seasons in a row, they I know it got very close, but they hung in there.
We felt that that Dan, if given the opportunity to concentrate more on offense, his specialty, and with the strong support of somebody like Marion Campbell, that we would make this move in that direction.
Although Campbell took his lumps as a head coach, both here and in Philly, he was a big success in Atlanta as a defensive coach and was happy to return to that role once again.
Dan allows me to coach it the way I want to get it done, allows me to coach my system, and leaves me alone, and I might not have had that everywhere else.
The Falcons are building patiently with youth. Offensive guard Bill Fralick and nose tackle Tony Casillas were both first-round draft picks and doing well. Dave Archer's the top-rated passer in the NFC at this time, but he faces his biggest test today in Dallas.
This is a big game for me because last year, the Cowboys situation, we jumped out early, got up 10-0. They came back, they started putting some pressure on me. I threw a few bad balls, and we ended up losing 24-10. They said some things in the paper after the game was over with, how they intimidated me and things. This is a game I've been waiting for a full year.
Regardless whether I'm here or somebody else is here, this is going to be a better football team for a longer period of time now than if it had been just strictly turned over.
Jimmy, either I'm getting older or the quarterbacks are getting younger.
He looks like a Pop Warner kid. I tell you one thing, he doesn't get lost in the huddle. He takes over. He's competitive and sharp, and everybody loves him.
Now, he is from Iowa State, and he came as a free agent to the National Football League. So
yes,
this is a remarkable accomplishment.
He led the Big Eight or something at that time in some stage of the game.
Yeah, total offense as a senior, Jimmy. So that's why he's doing well. And we will continue with the NFL Today on CBS.
In their prime, America's team was young, enthusiastic, and on top of the world. But Father Time always takes its toll. The Cowboys are now a veteran, experienced team. Dallas has been tempered by the frustration of recent failures. The defeats have been difficult, but they have made the Cowboys determined. Determined to prove they haven't gotten older, only better.
As the old saying goes, you know, as the wine gets older, it gets finer. So we're kind of aging gracefully.
If Dallas is a fine wine, Atlanta is a grape still on the vine. The Falcons are filled with the youthful exuberance and optimism that only comes from winning. Led by quarterback David Archer, they finished fast in '85 and are now coming on strong in '86.
Everybody's on the upside. These first 2 wins have given us the momentum that made us feel that we can play with anybody in the league, and we're coming to prove that.
So today, from the Lone Star State, it's the Atlanta Falcons and the Dallas Cowboys. teams who have not lost yet so far in '86 before a sellout at Texas Stadium in Irving, Texas. The Atlanta Falcons against the Dallas Cowboys on a beautiful afternoon. The story here has been the condition of Danny White. Did not practice the last 2 days because of a pulled thigh muscle on Thursday, but he has worked out and he is ready to go as he talks things over with head coach Tom Landry. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dick Stockton along with Dan Deerdorf, and Danny White indeed is going to start the game. But the other story for the Dallas Cowboys has been so far a good marriage, it seems, between Tony Dorsett and Herschel Walker.
Well, two very talented athletes that up until this point in time the marriage has worked, Dick, and it's really strictly because of Tony and Herschel. Two quality individuals, but Tony Dorsett knows in the back of his mind that eventually Herschel Walker will be the starting tailback on this ball club. It's just a question of when.
Yeah, what a great story the Atlanta Falcons have been after 2 games. They are 2-0 and looking very good, but today they're really stepping up in class.
Yeah, they really are. Wins over New Orleans and then St. Louis have bolstered the confidence of this club, and this club has a lot of people in Atlanta and around the country telling them that they're good, and the players hear this. Do they believe it? I'm not so sure. Coming to Texas Stadium, playing the Cowboys on the road. They've never won here. A win today elevates the Atlanta Falcons to a good ball club. The players would believe it. Can they do it? Yes, they can, but they'll probably need some help from the Cowboys.
It is 82 degrees, but on the field you can see it is that much warmer, 98 degrees. The sun has been in and out so far this afternoon as the Dallas Cowboys have won the toss, and they have elected to receive. So Mick Luckhurst will be kicking off for the Falcons. Deep will be Robert Levette to the right and Darryl Clack to the left for the Dallas Cowboys. Atlanta has won only once in 9 previous meetings, and as Dan mentioned, never here at Texas Stadium. Underway. And it's Clack in the end zone. Brings it out beyond the 20-yard line, and that's where they'll go to work. Keith Williams making the tackle for the Atlanta Falcons. So Danny White, starting at quarterback, will be facing this defense from the Atlanta Falcons. It's been solid thus far with Mike Gann, Tony Casillas, and Rick Bryan up front. Reggie Wilkes, Buddy Curry, John Rady, and Johnny Taylor starting in place of Joel Williams at linebacker. Bobby Butler and Scott Case, the corners. Wendell Cason and Brett Clark, the safeties. First and 10 at the 20. White throwing to Cosby is tight end. Brings it out close to the 28-yard line where the tackle is made by Brett Clark. The rest of the Dallas offense, Tony Dorsett and Timmy Newsome, the backs, Tony Hill and Gordon Banks, who has looked awfully good at wide receiver. Posderick for Richards at left tackle once again. Titensor, Rafferty, Crawford Kerr, Jim Cooper up front, and Cosby, who caught that pass, the tight end. 2 tight ends in there now. It's 2nd and 2 at the 28 for Dallas. Thornton Chandler in there. And here's Dorsett. First down for Tony with a big hole off the right side of the 38-yard line. Bobby Butler makes the tackle, a gain of 10.
What a giant hole to the right side of the Cowboy offensive line. Number 61, Jim Cooper. He's working against Mike Gann, and look how he screens him off to the inside. No pursuit from the inside linebacker, and Dorsett, an easy pickup for the first down.
The Falcons are one of 5 teams that Dorsett has never gained 100 yards against. It is a 1st and 10 at the 38. Play action. And Newsome out on the flat gets by the defender, Wendell Cason, and is knocked out of bounds. Shy of a first down by 2 yards. Buddy Curry ultimately made the tackle.
Danny White did not practice. They're seeing if he can throw the ball early. Friday and Saturday he had to lay out. We're going to see a lot of this today, and this is Danny White throwing to his backs. A low percentage pass, but once again, all it takes is a missed tackle, and a 1-yard pass becomes an 8-yard pickup.
So the Cowboys have picked up 8 yards on 2 first down plays. 2nd down and 2. Dorsett changes direction and is tripped up back at the 46-yard line, and good penetration by Rick Bryan, the defensive right end for the Falcons.
really was a question, Dick, where we didn't know until pregame warm-ups. You hear that all the time from coaches, and we'll make a decision on this player or that player when we see how they look in warm-ups. Danny White did not practice yesterday, as we said, and for a quarterback, that's highly unusual to then be able to play on Sunday.
Steve Pallure, who has never started an NFL regular season game, would have gotten the call. 3rd down and 1 at the 47. On 3rd and 1, White with a deep drop completes the pass to Gordon Banks into Atlanta territory, and a 1st down again for the Cowboys. At the 46 of Atlanta, Bobby Butler on the stop.
To the left of your screen, you're going to see Newsome and Cosby both work upfield. Right at the bottom of the screen, Banks will come in underneath. A fine job of clearing it out by the Cowboys, and that time Gordon Banks singled up, working against Bobby Butler. And Danny White, boy, you'd never know he missed any practice.
Banks started 3 years with the USFL and has come on strong here on a thin wide receiving core for the Cowboys. Dorsett. Out of bounds at the 39 by Wendell Kaysen. Gain of 6 yards for Tony Dorsett, who goes into the game needing 26 yards for 11,000 in his career. And Herschel Walker is making his first appearance in the ball game, and going out of the game is Timmy Newsome. So Walker and Dorsett will be in the backfield.
That's really great news for the Falcons. I'm sure they're excited about this.
Tony Hill and Banks come out to the right. 2nd and 4 at the 39. And now they move Walker out to the left. White pumped that way, now going for Herschel, and Walker was out of bounds. Wendell Kaysen was covering Herschel Walker, who has surprised the Dallas Cowboys with the way he has emerged as a receiver.
Good concentration. 1 foot is in. The second one clearly out. A good call by the official. But again, Herschel Walker surprised everyone, and Paul Hackett told us yesterday his ability to operate out in space is what impressed them. Not just the back coming out of the backfield, but able to line up wide as a wide receiver and run a pattern like that. Not many running backs can pull that off.
Newsome is back. Walker is out. 3rd and 4 at the 39-yard line of the Falcons. With a lot of time. Chased by Bryant. Now in trouble. And out of bounds now. Way back. And the crowd is yelling for a personal foul play. And it was Mike Gann who followed up Rick Bryant's pursuit, and that knocked Danny White and the Cowboys out of field goal range.
Well, Danny appeared that he was going to go out of bounds, but then came to a stop. One of the Falcons is going to go right by him. Mike Gann did the right thing. Danny White looked like he was going out of bounds, but stopped. You can't blame Mike Gann for finishing off the play.
A loss of 7 yards on the play. So Mike Saxon will come in and kick. And Floyd Dixon goes back for the Falcons. Dixon inside the 10. In trouble. And tackled. Way back at the 7-yard line by Steve DiOssi. And the Falcons have a long way to go when we come back. Well, this afternoon marks the 2nd time that David Archer have faced the Dallas Cowboys. The first one did not go so well, and today he's looking forward to making amends.
I'm very anxious to play against Dallas. Last season was a situation where we jumped out 10-0. I played pretty well early. They jumped out on us 24-10 and won the football game. I threw some bad balls late in the game. This is a game I've been waiting for a full year. They said some things late in the paper that I was intimidated, and I've been waiting a long time, and this is a situation where I'm going to come and prove to them in the football game.
But he's starting out on the 7-yard line. The Falcons and the Cowboys no score. Gerald Riggs is the running back. Riggs on the call. And maybe gets a yard or two. Everson Wall making the tackle as he penetrated nicely. This is the defense that the Dallas Cowboys show. Ed Jones, John Dutton, Randy White, and Jeff Code up front. Mike Hegman, Eugene Lockhart, and Jeff Rohr, the linebackers. Everson Walls, Ron Fellows, Bill Bates, and Michael Downs in the secondary. So for Dave Archer, the top-rated quarterback in the NFL, he told us yesterday flat out, this is the biggest game of my career. 2nd and 9 at the 8-yard line. And it's Riggs with a hole up the middle and a first down, getting out of trouble. Riggs beyond the 20-yard line, where the tackle is made by Johnny Holloway and Victor Scott. 13-yard pickup.
They're all good calls when they work. The draw to Gerald Riggs. Look how it opens up in the middle. Wayne Radloff, the center, comes off and makes the good block on Albritton, and that's the key to the play. And that's the risk you run when you have a defensive back right up on the line of scrimmage rather than a linebacker.
And a great game last year against the Cowboys. 1st and 10 at the 22. Go to Riggs again. Penalty marker down as he spun off John Dutton to the 25-yard line. Chuck Heberling is our official, and he signals a holding penalty against the Falcons. Heberling, the referee today. Ralph Moorcroft is the replay official upstairs.
To win today, Atlanta's going to have to play a near flawless game.
Holding. Offense. Number 67. 10 yards, first down.
Eric Sanders playing at right tackle, and he's playing in place of Brett Miller. The rest of the offense, Wisenhunt is the H-back, Charlie Brown, Anthony Allen, the wide receivers, and the offensive line with Sanders in for Brett Miller. Arthur Cox is the tight end. 2 good ones up front, and Mike Ken at left tackle and Bill Fralick at right guard. First down and 20 back at the 12-yard line. Once again, it's Riggs, and he gets nothing. Eugene Lockhart in with the stop. And right now, for an NFL Today report, here's Brent Musburger in New York.
Well, Dick, here's how the Colts struck against the Rams. The Rams fumbled on the opening kickoff, and it was George Wansley who took it in. The Rams right now, however, on the move. They trail by 7. Let's go back to Dick and Dan.
Of course, Dan, fumbling a kickoff can kill you, as we saw with Crawford last week with the Eagles against the Bears in overtime.
In overtime, and of course that's all it took. And turnovers, that's the one battle that Dan Henning said he needs to win today.
2nd and 19. And Riggs, making the most of the outside move, gets to the 19-yard line. And a gain of 6. Jim Jeffcoat and Vince Albritton making the tackle, and Riggs has carried on every offensive play so far for Atlanta.
This all started when Dixon handled the kickoff inside his own 10-yard line. And David Archer, a quarterback you have to keep in mind, still with limited experience. And I think Dan Henning is pretty wise keeping the ball on the ground.
8:45 remaining. First quarter, no score. 3rd and long. Sylvester Stamps, number 29, is the back. He's got speed. Finally, flag is down, and the pass was intended for Floyd Dixon, and incomplete, but a penalty marker is down right about the line of scrimmage. And another penalty against the Falcons, holding before, and Dan Henning doesn't want to see any of this. It'll be 4th down.
Yeah, the Cowboys will refuse the penalty and force the Falcons to punt.
Number 29 on the offense. Penalty is declined.
It was Stamps who started too soon.
So now Atlanta has to punt.
And Rick Donnelly will be in to kick.
And 3 mistakes that time by Atlanta. 1, the fielding of the punt inside the 10, a holding call, and then the motion penalty. Not a very good way to start the game.
Robert Levette is back for the Cowboys. Played his college ball at Georgia Tech. Donnelly leads the NFC in punting. Gets off a good one. Levette back at the 25. And a fine play back at the 25-yard line by Sylvester Stamps. A 55-yard kick by Donnelly. First time in a long and illustrious career, Tom Landry is wearing a headset on the sideline for the Dallas Cowboys because he has a new pass offense coordinator. This was Paul Hackett before the game on the field. He's upstairs right now.
And Paul Hackett told us that it's the most flattering thing that's ever happened to me that Tom Landry would put on a headset to communicate with me. But he said, you know what, the best part of it is I get to hear Tom Landry. I get to listen to him talk over and make decisions. Imagine what a learning experience that is for Paul Hackett.
And after learning under Bill Walsh, quite an education. 1st and 10 at the 26 for the Cowboys. No score. First quarter. Danny White completes the pass to the 35-yard line, and it's Cosby, the tight end, who comes into the game with a sprained ankle. Well, the Cowboys are kind of changing their offense to an extent, aren't they, with Hackett here?
Well, because Paul Hackett has always loved to throw to the running backs, and there's a good example of the differences between 85 and 86, and we've already seen it in the game, and especially against a team like Atlanta. They sometimes come with only a 3-man rush, drop back 8 people. Hey, you're not going to get past that defense. You're going to have to work underneath, and that suits Paul Hackett just fine.
2nd down and 1 for the Cowboys on their own 35. Dorsett. First down. Shy of the 40-yard line. Brett Clark, the free safety, coming up to make the tackle. Dallas Cowboys, after going 0-5 in preseason, and Tom Landry said it was a kind of an unusual preseason, having to go to London and all to play a game, and then all the USFL people coming in the signings, particularly Herschel Walker.
And plus a new pass offense coordinator. So it was a feeling out process, but I don't think Tom Landry panicked. I think he was a long way from that.
7 minutes to go, first quarter. 1st and 10 at the 39-yard line. Dorsett loses the ball. And the Falcons may have it. Atlanta recovers, and Tony Dorsett has fumbled for the first time this year. Wendell Kaysen recovered it for Atlanta, and they'll have good field position on the Dallas turnover.
And that's the type of break the Falcons are going to need if they're going to win this ballgame. A nice hole. Superb blocking up front. I believe it was Tony Casillas that got the hand in there and stripped the football. And it took an Atlanta bounce, and they're going to get the good break initially here in the ballgame. So David Archer out of the shadow of his own goal line.
And Wendell Kaysen, who recovered that fumble, moved from cornerback to strong safety. And it's 1st and 10 for the Falcons on their own 48. Archer. He's going deep. Charlie Brown just beyond him. Ron Fellows was covering Charlie Brown, and Archer was going for 6 on that play.
Boy, Dave Archer knows that if he'd have just choked his motor by about a yard, he'd have had a touchdown to Charlie Brown. But I think the Falcons are doing what they told us they were going to do yesterday, and that is test the Cowboys secondary, particularly Everson Walls and Ron Fellows, the 2 corners. If the Cowboys are going to blitz Archer, they're going to put those 2 corners in single coverage, and Atlanta's not going to be afraid to try it, especially to Charlie Brown.
There's the man who fumbled for the Cowboys, waiting for his chance again. 2nd and 10 at the 48. Pass is caught by Floyd Dixon. And Dixon gets inside the 45-yard line, close to a first down, just a bit short. Ron Fellows on the stop.
You realize what a good call that is right there. Fellows was burned, even though it wasn't a completion. He knew he got beat. So you know that cushion is going to get about 2 yards bigger. What a perfect time to come back with just a quick slant pattern. Easy completion for the Falcons. Good call.
Opposing quarterbacks have used Fellows as a target so far this season. William Andrews has come in the ball game, number 31, coming back from injury. 3rd and 1. Archer on a great play fake. Knocked down by Everson Walls on the pass intended for Keith Williams.
Dave Archer that time, instead of throwing the ball to the outside part of the field, threw it back to the inside, and that allowed Walls to come back in. And boy, Everson doesn't drop very many of those. 9 times out of 10, that's an interception by Everson Walls. Nope, David, you'd like to have that one back, wouldn't you?
That was a terrific fake. Froze everybody, but Walls was there equal to the task. And so on 4th down, Falcons don't make much of their good field position, and Rick Donnelly will be kicking to Robert Levette. And it's a fake. And Brett Clark will have the first down for the Falcons. On a fake punt, Brett Clark, the short man, the up man, goes 7 yards for a razzle-dazzle and an Atlanta first down.
It's going to be a snap to the up back, number 20. Here comes a trap block. Ken Wisenhunt, look at the block he makes and springs the opening for Clark. And the Dallas Cowboys should have been a little more alert for the fake when it was only 4th and a short yardage, only 2 yards to go. Dan Henning, that's the way you play if you're in his position. You have nothing to lose. You're a 10-point underdog.
Got to pull out the stops early in a game like this. 5 minutes and 10 seconds to go, first quarter. No score. 1st and 10 at the 38. Gerald Riggs gets to the 35 where Ed Jones makes the tackle. Jones, according to Henning, is playing as well as he has in the last several years.
Dallas, of course, we all know, uses a flex defense. 2 of their linemen are back off of the football. John Dutton and Jeffcoat back off of the ball. These 2 guys, White and Jones, are the only ones in the clear position to play the run. They're going to trap Randy White with Middleton, and it worked for a couple.
2nd down and 8 at the 35. Riggs in trouble and backed up and a loss of about 4 yards. Credit Jeff Rohr, who almost did not play today because of injured ribs, and Randy White, and shaken up is Gerald Riggs, and he gets up limping.
Well, this is not good news for the Falcons if Riggs is going to be out of this game for a while. And he's picked it up and now starts jogging over to the sideline. Boy, did Rohr do a fine job of getting upfield, beating the lead block, and making the play all by himself. Jeff Rohr, who was questionable before the game, and now Gerald Riggs, he may be questionable for the rest of the game. We'll get a report and pass it along.
William Andrews comes in the ball game for him. 3rd and 13. 4 wide receivers for Atlanta. And the 30-second clock may have expired. Check to see if this is a delay of the game call.
Offense, 5 yards, 3rd down.
That'll set him down to 3rd and 18. Back on the Cowboys 45.
And that's really not Dave Archer's fault. The reason the Falcons got a late start was because of how long it took for Gerald Riggs to get off the field. The referees didn't give him a break. They started the 30-second clock a little early.
He has mobility, does Archer. Going deep for Charlie Brown, and it's intercepted. And a penalty marker is down. Everson Walls picked it off, but a flag is down upfield close to the line of scrimmage.
We're going to get a personal foul call against the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to negate the interception. Watch Dave Archer. Coming from behind is Ed Jones. Oh, and a hit right to the head.
Unnecessary roughness. Number 36 on the defense. Prior to the interception. 15 and a first down.
And the critical thing is that it happened before the interception. So Vince Albritton called for a personal foul, and so instead of Dallas getting the ball back, it'll be a 1st and 10 for the Atlanta Falcons on the Cowboy 30-yard line. And talk about costly fouls.
Here it is again. Watch Albritton. He's right on the 40-yard line right now. He's going to put his head right in Archer's face.
Crunch.
And that's what he got called for, the blow to the head. You cannot strike above the shoulders in the National Football League. Reminiscent of the hit that Wilbur Marshall last year of the Bears put on Joe Ferguson of the Lions. Only Ferguson didn't get up. Archer did.
He's still feeling that one. Crowd doesn't like it. Riggs is back in the game for the Falcons. It's 1st and 10 at the 30. No score. Riggs. Michael Downs made the first penetration. And Jim Jeffcoat followed suit, and the Cowboy fans didn't take them long to be on their feet, up in arms today.
That's about as quick as a free safety can get up into the play, but credit Jeffcoat with the initial upfield surge, and of course he's working against a great one, maybe the best individual matchup we have on the line of scrimmage today is between Jeffcoat and Mike Ken, a couple of all-pro football players.
Brett Miller, who did not start the game, the regular right tackle, is in there now, number 62. Second down and 15 to 35. Draw play. Riggs, with a few Cowboys on his back, brings it to the 25, where Bill Bates and Vince Albritton combined to make the tackle. As you look at the time remaining in the first quarter, Riggs had lost 10 yards the last 2 carries before that burst.
Isn't it funny how it's nothing more really than a game of mistakes? He who makes the fewest mistakes ends up winning a ball game, and the penalty by Albritton that time has negated an interception, and look where the Falcons are at the 25-yard line.
It'll be third down and 5, and definite field goal range for Mick Luckers. Archer. Flag is down, and the pass is caught by Floyd Dixon, and that would be a first down. But let's see what the call is back at the line of scrimmage. So they're going to nullify that first down because of an Atlanta holding penalty.
If you want to see raw power, watch the surge of the defensive line of the Cowboys. The Falcon offensive line is going to go flat on its back. And Randy White, look at him pull over the center, Radloff. That's where the call is going to come. That, my friends, is superior work.
Radloff took over for the veteran Jeff Van Note at center. Third down and 15. Sylvester Stamps up the middle. Gets to the 30-yard line. It'll be 4th and 10, and Mick Luckhurst will be coming in to try to put the Falcons on the scoreboard here with 53 seconds remaining in the first quarter. The 2 defensive ends, Ed Jones and Jim Jeffcoat, made the tackle. So here's Luckhurst, who has hit both of his field goal attempts this year from 32 and 42 yards. This should be a 47-yard attempt, and Archer will hold for it. From 47 yards. And the kick is good. And the Atlanta Falcons, with 14 seconds remaining in the first quarter, lead the Dallas Cowboys 3-0 on a Luckhurst field. Luckhurst will kick off for the Falcons. Darryl Clack and Robert Levette are back. 3-0 in favor of the Falcons. Takes a hop into the end zone, and Levette is going to down it there for a touchback. And the Cowboys will bring it out to the 20-yard line, 1st and 10. We have 8 seconds remaining in the first quarter here at Texas Stadium. Dick Stockton and Dan Deerdorf. 2 teams that have come in 2-0. No surprise really for the Cowboys, but certainly for the Falcons. Atlanta with Tampa Bay coming up next week knows how critical this major game could be if they are to become the surprise team of the year.
Dan Henning, a lot of people weren't sure he'd still be here this year. He's been given an opportunity. It looks like it might be working.
1st and 10. Herschel Walker is split as a wide receiver to the right. 1st and 10 at the 20. Dorsett with good blocking. And Tony Dorsett is off and running and out of bounds at the 39-yard line. Wendell Kaysen making the tackle. Good block by Newsom and a gain of 19 yards on the play.
Who makes this play happen? Coming in from outside of the screen is going to be Herschel Walker from his wide receiver position that's going to make the block. Herschel Walker lined up at wide receiver right there. Right there is the block by Herschel Walker. He's going to give Dorsett the alleyway. Both guards out in front. Unselfish play that time by Herschel Walker, and perfect execution by the Cowboys.
And Tony Dorsett has gone over the 11,000 mark with that run. 1st and 10 at the 40 for the Cowboys, and a good play action fake by Danny White, going deep downfield and incomplete, going for the rookie Mike Sherrard. Covered on the play by Scott Case as the gun sounds.
And you have to wonder if Danny White would have been practicing the last couple of days, would the timing have been there? The Falcons have the early lead.
So we start the second quarter here at Texas Stadium with the Falcons leading the Cowboys 3-0. It'll be 2nd and 10 for Dallas on their own 40-yard line. Here's Tony Dorsett with a good move. First down into Falcon territory. Scott Case making the tackle. Doug Cosby with a good block at tight end. Add 12 yards to Tony Dorsett's total.
The Falcons know that there are few backs in the league that start one direction like Dorsett, come to a complete stop, and then can bring it all the way back around. But you have to maintain your contain over here. That time the Falcons were guilty of over-pursuing. But watch Dorsett come to a complete stop and then reverse his field. I don't know that any back in the game does it better. And how about that shot he puts right there on Scott Case?
1st and 10 at the Atlanta 48. White to Banks. Bobby Butler covering, and a penalty marker is down. Gordon Banks running a square out pattern, and a penalty flag down. Here's Chuck Heverling.
Pass interference defense, number 23. First down.
It'll give the Cowboys a first down inside the 30-yard line.
When you play to the football, you can't play through the receiver. And that time Bobby Butler made his move to the ball when clearly Banks had the positioning on the football, and the official throws the flag. Butler made the error and got flagged for it.
That's the 4th penalty against the Falcons for 44 yards, so most of them have been major ones. White, loose and wide open. Gets inside the 20 and another first down. And for an NFL Today report, let's join Brent Musburger again in New York. Brent?
Well, Dick, this is a big day for the Wansley. George scored for the Colts. Now it is Nathan Wansley, younger brother for the Buccaneers. 9 brothers, 2 sisters in that family from Moss Point, Mississippi. Let's hear it for the Wansley. Back to Dick.
All right, we just gave a cheer for the Wansley. And it's a 1st and 10 for the Cowboys on the Atlanta 18. Cowboys marching here, trailing Atlanta 3-0. Herschel Walker in the game and carries for the first time. Shows you the bit of the power and strength he has as he brings it to the 12-yard line, with a stop for Atlanta made by Buddy Curry, Reggie Wilkes, and Rick Bryant. That's how many it took.
And I think we'll be seeing a lot of that over the years. Herschel Walker, a back who's just one of those rare individuals that possesses uncanny power and at the same time breakaway speed, reminiscent of Jim Brown.
2nd and 4 at the 12-yard line. There they are, Dorsett and Walker lined up split. Ball to Walker. To the 5 and inside the 5 and out of bounds at the 4. Scott Case and Wendell Kaysen. Another first down for the Cowboys.
And what a lead back. Tony Dorsett is going to make the lead block that's going to spring Herschel Walker. Tony told us about this yesterday. This is not a new play, by the way. He'd be doing the same thing if that was Timmy Newsome at the fullback position. Dorsett effectively puts Johnny Taylor on the ground. Herschel sees the outside and takes it. I wouldn't want to be a defensive coordinator and have to work all week on this offense.
What a dimension he brings. 1st and goal at the 4. Newsome and Walker are the backs now. Play action. White, wide open. Touchdown. Thornton Chandler, the tight end. He left Brett Clark, we'd say, in the dirt, but we don't have any dirt down there. And the Cowboys lead at 6-3. Chandler has caught 2 passes, both for touchdowns.
Chandler will be coming right at us from the right side of the screen, but it's a play action fake to Walker. Look at the time Danny White has in the backfield. Cosby cleared, and there is Walker. He spun away and all by himself. Gritty performance by Danny White, who wasn't even expected to play.
Raphael Septien with Pelluer holding, will try to give the Cowboys a 7-3 lead. And he does. So Thornton Chandler has caught 2 passes, both for touchdowns in his rookie year in the NFL. Rafael Septien getting set to kick off for the Cowboys to Keith Williams and Sylvester Stamps. Williams on the right. It's now 7-3. There's a scoring drive and a nifty 80-yard drive at that.
And it was a drive composed of 7 completely different plays. What a masterful mix. We saw Herschel Walker, we saw Dorsett, we saw a play action pass, we saw a conventional drop back, we saw a little bit of everything.
3 minutes gone by in this second quarter. Atlanta scoring first on a Luckhurst field goal. Headed towards Stamps, a yard in the end zone. Stamps is hung up, literally, at the 21-yard line. Well, for years, Dan, we've seen that half of Texas Stadium is in shade, the other half in sun, but the visiting team has to sit in the sun.
Yeah, you've seen it from the booth. I've seen it from the bench down there, and that is the hottest bench in the National Football League. There's no air movement on the floor of Texas Stadium. By the way, we've got a player down on the field at the 20-yard line, but what a hot bench. And of course the Cowboy bench is in shade, and they just sit on the other side of the field and laugh at you. Yeah, they look cool and calm over there. Pretty nice, isn't it, Gordon? Well, let me tell you, on the other side of the field, it's one hot son of a gun.
Stamps is the injured player down, and he's coming off. But when you played with the Cardinals, didn't you kind of move to the side away from the bench?
Well, as the day goes on, the sun starts to move towards one end of the field, and you'll see the team move all the way down into the shade. In fact, one time, we moved beyond the 35, and they made us move back because you're not allowed out of those lines.
I thought you guys were tough enough to take the heat.
No.
That's exactly what it looks like, and the Cowboys wisely have always chosen the cooler,
Atlanta,
I should say.
Atlanta there on your left, Dallas on your right, and it's big difference, probably 20-25 degrees difference. And if you think that doesn't make a difference, try sitting there for 3 hours.
We'll ask Buddy Curry and whoever's sitting next to him. 1st and 10 for the Falcons on the 21-yard line. Game of big backs today with Walker and Riggs. And Dorsett not so big, but equally productive. Archer's quick toss and hit immediately on 1st down is Charlie Brown. Brown is hit at the 26-yard line by Ron Fellows.
Well, Fellows, who gave up a completion and some big yardage before by giving the big cushion that time, playing Brown really tight. You wonder if maybe he didn't have some outside help on his own where he could tighten up and play Brown tight, but he was right there. Good hit. Good play by Ronnie Fellows.
2nd and 5. Archer gets some pressure. Has some space. Runs into his own man as he stopped at the 29-yard line. Arthur Cox, guy you don't want to run into at 255 pounds.
And Cox that time was coming back, trying to hit Randy White, who was chasing Dave Archer, and instead knocks Archer to the ground.
Is there a bigger tight end than Arthur Cox?
Well, he's just gigantic. How about both of them? Cox, you know, was 255 last week. This week they list him at 262. His backup Middleton is 252. Boy, they like some girth down there in their Atlanta tight ends.
3rd down and 2, and Archer has got to be shaking the cobwebs away. The ball is at the 29-yard line, and they have both of those tight ends in there now. Gerald Riggs, extra effort might get him the 1st down to the 31-yard line. And it is a 1st down for the Falcons. Jim Jeffcoat making the tackle. Riggs, of course, came in and played the opening game of the year after being a holdout, and he led the NFC in rushing last year.
You know, only 1,719 yards of an average effort by Gerald Riggs. Wasn't beaten out for the NFL's rushing crown until the last Sunday by Marcus Allen.
1st and 10 at the 32. Riggs again. To the 35 and dives forward beyond the 40-yard line. Eugene Lockhart knocked him out of bounds.
This is a good call by the Atlanta Falcons because Bill Bates is going to come on the blitz. Michael Downs is going to come on the blitz, and Riggs is going to come outside. The Falcons sensing the blitz. Downs at the top, Bates at the bottom. Michael Downs, no, the ball's over here, Michael. There goes Gerald Riggs, and that almost went all the way. That was a good play that time by Eugene Lockhart to keep Riggs from even bigger yardage.
Second down, 1 at the 41-yard line for Dave Archer. Archer up the middle, wide open. Arthur Cox, and a tight end makes the catch for the Falcons, and a first down. Gain of 14 yards. Mike Hegman making the tackle into Dallas territory at the 45.
I'm so glad I don't have to complain about the play that drives me crazy, and that's having second and a foot and just banging it in off of right guard. That time was second and very short yardage. Atlanta puts it up in the air and gets the completion. You got to like that kind of play call.
Well, we heard David Archer talk about how humiliating last year's game with the Cowboys was, and he looks a lot more poised this time around. Good offensive line will do that. Cliff Austin is the running back now in there, number 39 for the Falcons. First and 10 at the 45. Flag down. Archer's pass incomplete. Bates was covering Anthony Allen on the play. But let's check the penalty. It'll be against Dallas.
Offside. Defense. Number 50. 5 yards. First down.
Jeff Rohr, the linebacker. Talking about Dave Archer. Free agent out of Iowa State. Began his career at Snow Junior College in Ephraim, Utah, which is only, Dan, 5.5-hour ride from Soda Springs, Idaho.
His home. And, of course, everyone, I'm sure, knew that. I wish you wouldn't give out information that everyone knew well in advance.
I think his phone is unlisted.
You think they have phones?
First and 5 at the 40. On the draw play, Austin with a flag down. And Austin is dragged down at the 34-yard line by Randy White.
Well, Randy White was also in the Atlanta backfield, and he just got called for it.
So unusual that 2 successive penalties of that sort against the Cowboys defense.
Randy White, one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever play the game of football, hasn't showed any signs of slowing down yet.
Offside. Defense. Number 54. The penalty is declined. It's first down.
I doubt that Tom Landry will bench him after being offsides. I think he'll let him play the rest of the ball game. Tremendous. And, of course, number 54, a number made famous by Chuck Howley here in Dallas.
Who's on the Ring of Honor around here at Texas Stadium. First and 10 at the 35. Gerald Rakes back in there for the Falcons. Cowboys lead at 7-3. 8:22 to go in the half. Archer with a fake and a run. And has a first down at the 21-yard line. That's the mobility edge. A gain of 14. And the Falcons are threatening.
If somebody might get chewed out on this play, it might be Eugene Lockhart. He probably has the spy responsibility, but he's going to come up and get involved in the middle. That's going to give Archer the clear lane to the outside. Let's take a look. Here comes Lockhart, and he's going to get caught in the middle. He realizes he's made a mistake, tries to stop, but too late. David Archer's already to the outside.
First and 10 at the 21. Archer up the middle to Arthur Cox, who's brought down by Eugene Lockhart, but not before he gets inside the 15-yard line. And Lockhart and Cox exchange a few pleasantries.
Well, it's inevitable that there's bad blood between these two teams. In the game in Texas Stadium here a year ago, there was quite a brawl between the Atlanta Falcons and Dallas. It started between Bill Fralick and John Dutton, and it escalated from there.
Don Smerick, who's on injured reserve, also got involved. It'll be second down and 2 for Atlanta on the Cowboys 13. Joey Jones, who came from the USFL, is out to the left, number 84. Riggs up the middle. And Riggs will have a first down inside the 10. With time remaining in the first half, Jeff Rora and Ed Jones making the tackle for the Cowboys.
The Falcons have made it known that they were going to draft big people. They wanted to build their club around their lines. Their offensive line, Sanders and Miller, the two guys that play at right tackle, Fralick, Radloff, Scully, and Ken right now, I think, are taking the Cowboy defensive line off the ball.
This drive started on the Falcons' 21. First and goal at the 8-yard line. Riggs might have gotten to the 5. Bill Bates coming up from strong safety to make the tackle.
One of the ways to go against the flex defense, it's tough to get to the middle linebacker, so you pull your center and have him lead a play to pick up and get a block out in front of Riggs. Let's see how Radloff does on this play. There he is pulling, but a block was missed, and he had to pick up too tall Jones. If he doesn't pull, Jones makes that play in the backfield for a couple-yard loss.
The 11th play of the drive coming here. It'll be second and goal at the 6. Radloff over the ball. Archer loops it to Middleton. Flag is down. And Michael Downs. It was broken up by Downs, intended for Ron Middleton, the tight end.
This may go against Atlanta. Chuck Heberling just hitting the head with a football. But offensive interference against Atlanta.
They had the ball at the 6. Let's hear it.
Pass interference. Offense. Number 88. 10 yards. Second down.
It was Cox, the other huge tight end.
Arthur Cox comes in from the right side of the screen, and there he makes contact with Everson Wall. Oh, he's even grabbing his jersey. Oh, you just can't make a mistake down in the offensive part of the end zone. That's a mistake by Arthur Cox.
Second down and 16. Both Atlanta and Dallas, by the way, have been immensely successful when they've had the ball inside the 20. Sylvester Stamps goes in motion. Archer. Incomplete, going for Floyd Dixon. And that was the designed rollout for Archer. Everson Walls was covering.
It was designed all the way because Stamps, who went in motion, came back to the inside. When you have a quarterback with the mobility of a David Archer, he led the NFL last year in quarterback rushing over 300 yards. Why not take advantage of it? He's not a classic drop back style of thrower. He's not a Danny White in that respect. So you do what you do best. And what David Archer does best is move.
Well, we'll see what Atlanta does here. They had a first and goal at the 8-yard line. They got to the 6, and now they face a 3rd and 16 back at the 16. Used up more than 6 minutes on the clock.
And the Cowboys love to blitz here.
Archer. And it's incomplete. Dixon was covered by Ron Fellows. So the Falcons had a golden opportunity. First and goal inside the 10, and now they're going to have to send in Luckhurst.
But you have to like this call and this throw by Archer because it's either a touchdown or it's an incomplete pass. When you work it to that small of a part of the field, you don't want to take yourself either out of a scoring opportunity, which the Falcons have right now with a field goal. So you know he's either got a touchdown or an incompletion.
This will be a 33-yard attempt. Luckhurst has already kicked a 47-yarder. Archer will hold in an attempt to bring the Falcons to within 1. And Luckhurst's kick is good. And with 5:41 remaining in the first half, it's the Dallas Cowboys 7 and the Atlanta Falcons 6. Dan, Atlanta certainly giving Dallas quite a challenge, but a lot of disturbing things so far for Dan Henning.
Well, they're making mistakes. That time Cox with the offensive interference in the end zone, but still, Dan has to be pleased. That was a good, solid drive by his club, who's showing that they can stand toe-to-toe with the Cowboys.
They had the ball for more than 6 minutes on that drive and have had the ball twice as longer as the Cowboys have. As you take a look at that scoring drive, Mick Luckhurst will be kicking off, and Robert Levette and Darrell Clack. Clack on the right for the Cowboys. It's a short kick, and Clack at the 5-yard line. Fights his way out to the 25-yard line. Well, don't forget next Saturday, the 2 top-ranked. Gerald Riggs getting a breather right now. Play fake, going for Tony Hill. Incomplete. Scott Case covering on the play. Hill never had possession.
Scott Case got stuck with lone single coverage out there on Tony Hill. They came with the blitz. Case has the position there, but got spun all the way back around by Hill making the move to the sidelines, and Tony should have caught this ball. It's right there, but the Case hit is instantaneous and brings it out.
Hill and Danny White have developed that rapport that a lot of quarterbacks and receivers have.
Yeah, and Paul Hackett talked to us about that there are some things you just can't coach, and they hooked on a touchdown pass against the Giants Monday night that really was improvisation between the two. That comes from being a veteran ball player.
Pitch to Dorsett. Little extra effort, brings it out to the 32-yard line where Buddy Curry makes the tackle. Dorsett has gained 64 yards, by the way, Dan, on 8 carries.
You've been doing this game in the NFL for a long time, and you've seen Dorsett for years, as have I. Do you ever get over seeing him in the locker room and seeing how slight a man he is, and to see that he runs? He's such a punishing runner for such a small guy.
You just want to wrap him up and take him home and say, we'll protect you, Tony.
Yeah, he is not a Herschel Walker when it comes to their physical presence.
And speaking of Herschel, he's in the game right now at 3rd and 3. The ball, and it's picked off, and it's Mike Pitts is going in for the touchdown for the Falcons. Rick Bryan and Mike Pitts combined for the turnover, and a 22-yard touchdown run by Mike Pitts, former #1 pick of Alabama, and the Falcons have regained the lead.
And it is Rick Bryan all the way that causes this play. Rick Bryan, number 77, is going to start upfield. He's going to make an inside move on Phil Pozderac, going to beat him and go directly to the quarterback and make the hit on Danny White. Watch the move to the inside. Hit fake, back inside. Pozderac beaten cleanly, and there's the ball. And Mike Pitts walks it in, a defensive lineman's dream. Or an offensive lineman's dream, too.
I guess. Yeah, maybe anyone's dream. Luckhurst will attempt the conversion in a silent Texas stadium with 4:30 remaining. The kick is good, and the Falcons lead it 13-7. And now, if you want to know how the coach with the headset saw it and how he reacted, can you blame him? Well, Dan, the Falcons have the lead, but I'm sure they remember last year's game when they had the lead.
I'm sure that's what Dan Henning is telling his ball club, that, hey, guys, we were leading 10-0 last year, and we let it get away from us. But this is a Falcon ball club. We talked about it in the beginning, trying to believe in itself. And this isn't helping Dallas at all, letting them have the early lead.
Luckhurst kicking off to Levette and Clack. And it's going to be Robert Levette at the 9-yard line. Great return by Levette, out of bounds at the 46-yard line and tackled by the kicker, Mick Luckhurst. A return of 37 yards.
Why do I get the feeling we've got a football game on our hands? Howard Richards gets a block right out in front, 2-A, and there he goes. Robert Levette doesn't even have to break a tackle till he gets up to the 45.
Probably because we do.
We do have a football game on our hands, and I love it. I love it.
And later today, we have one coming up in Los Angeles between the Giants and the Raiders. The Raiders are 0-2. Jim Plunkett will be at quarterback in place of the injured Mark Wilson. Giants with a great defensive effort against San Diego last week. 1st and 10 at the 46. They swing it to Dorsett. Out of bounds right at midfield by Scott Case. Did not quite get out of bounds, and the clock continues to run. Turnovers, that's what it's happened here.
You almost could put a graphic like this up every week, because turnovers almost always lead to points. There's 10 points on the 2 Dallas fumbles. You know, it's really a pretty simple game when you boil it down. As I said before, mistakes will do you in.
Dan Henning said, our offensive line against the Dallas defensive line, and more than anything else, turnovers. 2nd and 5. Danny White to Herschel Walker, who's hit immediately by Reggie Wilkes at the 46-yard line of Atlanta, shy by about 2 yards of first down territory.
Sometimes you're not sure if you're watching the Cowboys or watching the 49ers. 2 or 3 people streak downfield, and then the backs make a move underneath to try to get open. That time it was Herschel Walker. In comes Newsome.
And out goes Tony Dorsett. So Newsome and Walker make up the backfield for the Cowboys with 3 minutes remaining in the first half. 13-7 Atlanta. In the spread now. White. And a fine catch. Wilkes was going for the ball. And Thornton Chandler, who caught the touchdown pass, has it for a Dallas first down at the 37-yard line.
Thornton Chandler working out of the slot position to the bottom left of your screen. It's pretty simple. He just makes a hook, and Wilkes playing him too much to the inside, but that was an extremely well-thrown ball from Danny White.
Chandler is the youngest player on the Cowboys squad at 22, a 6th-round pick.
And his first catch that didn't go for a touchdown.
Right. You say, what's the problem? First and 10 Cowboys on the Falcon 38. 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go in the first half. White going to Chandler again, was double covered and incomplete. Wendell Kaysen and Buddy Curry were both there defending the tight end.
Chandler lighting up here at tight end. Look how he gets stopped at the line of scrimmage. 1 hit, 2 hits. A little holding by Buddy Curry didn't help matters. That's where the timing got distorted. Buddy Curry that time avoided the flag. He should have been flagged for defensive holding.
It'll be 2nd and 10 as they heat.
Those towels have been laying in buckets of ice water.
Danny White is 9 of 13. That's a good percentage, but only 64 yards, so he hasn't gotten anything deep. Dorsett on a quick trap to the 32-yard line, and we'll have our 2-minute warning now with 1:58 on the clock. Scott Case and Wendell Kaysen make the tackle, and we'll be back to Texas. 40-year-old Jeff Van Note, who no longer starts but still plays a key role for the Falcons, looking on. We're having our 2-minute warning, and each team has the full complement of 3 timeouts remaining. The Cowboys have a 3rd down and 4 at the Atlanta 32, and the Falcons leading 13-7, going ahead on the fumble caused by Rick Bryan into the hands of Mike Pitts, who rambled 22 yards for a Falcon touchdown. By the way, only 1 pass of 9 completions by Danny White have been caught by a wide receiver so far. White gets to a wide receiver now, and Mike Sherrard is knocked out of bounds inside the 5. So the rookie from UCLA with a 30-yard gain, knocked out of bounds by James Britt.
The Cowboys flood this side of the field, and Sherrard is working against David Crudup, number 30. And it's nothing more than a simple sideline pattern. Crudup lost a shoe. Did you see him lose a shoe on his left foot? It flew off, and that caused him to go down. Oh, it's a funny game sometimes, but David Crudup lost a shoe, and Dallas gets the big play.
Sherrard close to starting, according to Paul Hackett. He was a holdout, had some injuries, lost time, looked good on that one, and it's 1st and goal at the 1 for the Cowboys. Touchdown, Timmy Newsome. First touchdown rushing of the season for Timmy Newsome. Dallas has tied the game.
A play that Dallas runs so effectively on the goal line is the trap block right here by Doug Cosby. He's going to come in, make the block. Newsome's going to go right in behind it. Dallas has run this play for years. The tight end becomes a guard. There's the trap on Casillas, and it's a walk-in.
Timmy Newsome with the touchdown, and now Raphael Septien. In an effort to tie the score, Steve Pallure is holding. with 1:47 remaining in the first half. And a tie ball game. Or make it 14-13 in favor of the Cowboys.
David Grudem, number 30. Watch his shoe come off when he goes to make his reaction to the outside. Right there. There it goes. You see his shoe right there that's come off his foot? Now watch him take his next step, and his sock will spray out a little bit, and he's going to lose his footing.
So the Dallas Cowboys lead the Atlanta Falcons 14-3, and a lot of timeouts left for Atlanta. 14-13, Dallas leading Atlanta. That's how much time remains in the first half. Rafael Septien will be kicking off to Keith Williams and Sylvester Stamps, who's on the left. Bobbled it and will set it down there for a touchback. Well, there's the captain.
Captain Ha-Ha. We knew that it was hot down here in Dallas, but obviously the heat affects different people in different ways. Halloween is next month, I think.
Well, if he were wearing the black and silver, we could say he'd be with the Raiders, who will be going against the Giants in the second half of our CBS doubleheader this afternoon.
Wayne Radloff has left the field for some sort of injury examination, and Jeff Van Note back at his customary spot at center for the Falcons. I wonder if he remembers the plays.
Give him a crash course. Played in the fourth quarter last week against the Cardinals. 1st and 10 at the 20 for the Falcons. Design rollout for Archer. Going deep for Charlie Brown. And covered well on the play by Ron Fellow.
Aggressive play calling by the Atlanta Falcons. Ron Fellows played this pretty well. It's not a bad throw by David Archer, a little overthrown. But Ron Fellows, Charlie Brown, stride for stride. But you have to like the call. They're not willing to sit on it and just go to halftime trailing by 1. They'd like more points.
Archer is 4 for 10 for only 36 yards. Falcons scored their lone touchdown on a defensive play and 2 Luckhurst field goals. 2nd and 10 at the 20. Archer falls down. He might have gotten tripped up. Could it have been Van Note at all?
And we may see Dallas take a timeout here. Let's see. The Cowboys should take timeout.
Timeout, Dallas, number 1.
Let's see if we can find out what happens. New center in the game in Van Note. No, Archer's got the ball cleanly. He may have made contact with his pulling guard, Bill Fralick. We couldn't see exactly, but it was a clean snap from Jeff Van Note.
So we'll give you scores of other games. As with the Dallas timeout, Archer goes to the sidelines to talk things over. We have 1 minute and 36 seconds to go in the first half. And Atlanta still has all 3 of their timeouts. And Tom Landry is banking on the Cowboys getting the ball back. It'll be 3rd and 14. They can hold them here. They will.
Well, I said I liked the call on first down of Atlanta trying to get the ball deep to Charlie Brown. But the risk you run is the incompletion against a team that has 3 timeouts. Dallas had their full complement of timeouts, and now unless Atlanta gets a first down, they're going to get the football back and maybe get into scoring position. So it's aggressive. You have to admire them taking a chance, but it may work against them.
And already Tom Landry, as you can see, talking things over with Danny White, anticipating the Cowboys getting that ball back.
Landry is so far ahead of everyone else, he may be talking about the first series of the second half. He's already got, I guarantee he's already got it all worked out what they're going to do.
William Andrews checks into the ball game for the Falcons. And Ken Wisenhunt, who starts at H-back, goes out. So does Gerald Riggs. 3rd and 14 on the 16-yard line. Archer. Fumble. Loses the ball. Back at the 2. Dallas ball. Jesse Baker made the hit. Jim Jeffcoat recovered the fumble.
take a look at this. This pass rush, we're going to see Jesse Baker crash to the inside. Randy White loop around to the outside, and it's going to be Baker that's going to get the hit on David Archer. There he goes to the inside. White loops to the outside. Baker initially picked up by two guys, continues with the good surge, and he's going to make the hit. A costly error for the Atlanta Falcons.
And it's first and goal at the 2 for the Cowboys. Herschel Walker, number 34 in it, running back. Newsome in motion. Newsome. Touchdown, Dallas. They didn't need all that talking at the sidelines, did they, Landry and White?
No. When you only got to go a couple of yards. Timmy Newsome scored on a play last week out of the backfield against Detroit. Here he does it again after the play action to Walker. Wendell Cason about 3 steps behind Newsome, not even close. That's about as easy as it comes. And again, Danny White, who wasn't expected to play, playing hurt, playing well.
Septien. It's the 21st point. And the Cowboys lead the Falcons 21-13 with 1:25 remaining in the first half. It's in the country, but that's when we 7 lead evaporate as Timmy Newsome has scored a touchdown rushing and receiving. And the big play was the defensive play by Jesse Baker, who was picked up from Houston on waivers before the season started, and now Dan Henning has to think things over, trailing by 8.
He must be on some sort of a weight loss program, wearing a jacket down on the sidelines. That may be the power of positive thinking. Try and get his players to think, oh, it's really not that hot down here. I'm wearing a jacket. I've got to chill.
Well, the good news is the Falcons still have 3 timeouts left. Bad news is they've given up 2 touchdowns, and it's 21-13, and Septien will kick it off again. Stamps on the left and Williams on the right. It's going to be Stamps at the 1-yard line. And doesn't get it out to the 20-yard line, where the stop is made by Garth Jacks. Coming up at halftime, Brent Will and Ken Stabler with scores and highlights, and feature reporter Ann Butler looks at the issues involved of whether Napoleon McCallum should be allowed to play pro football while serving his naval obligation. That's coming up at halftime in the NFL today. Well, the Cowboys have scored 14 points in the last 22 seconds, and with 1:21 to go, Atlanta starting well in their own territory.
David Archer getting hit by Jesse Baker, fumbled the football. We'll have to see how that affects his confidence. I don't know that we'll see anything flamboyant by Atlanta now.
Archer overthrowing Charlie Brown, and he took a lick there.
I'm surprised by that call, and David Archer is limping.
Turk Schonert would be the backup quarterback, acquired from the Cincinnati Bengals during the offseason.
David took a shot there somewhere on his left leg. I doubt we'll see a throw again here, and I was surprised by that one.
He's completed only 4 of 11 passes for 36 yards. 2nd and 10. And Gerald Riggs. 3 or 4 Cowboys finally caught up to him at the 21-yard line. Man who made the tackle, Vince Albritton, with help from Johnny Holloway. Under a minute to go in the first half. A lot of scores have been as a result of turnovers. 17 to be exact.
7 for Atlanta, 10. Check that, 7 for Dallas and 10 for Atlanta as a result of turnovers. And we're going to have a timeout. And look how the teams go over and stand in the shade during a timeout.
You talk about the benches and how hot it is there. They don't want to stand out on the field.
The football is out in the sun.
Touchdown. Timeout remaining with under a minute to go. It's 3rd down and 6 for the Falcons. Pressure on Archer, but he's got Anthony Allen. Allen has a first down to the 37-yard line. Vince Albritton makes the 4-0 defense used by the Cowboys. Archer up the middle, incomplete. And a good hit by Michael Downs on Anthony Allen, the intended receiver.
Boy, that's timing it out pretty good. Michael Downs makes the hit on Anthony Allen. But we see Victor Scott, number 22, up front. He's flowing out of the backfield. Vince Albritton coming in late on the blitz, but Michael Downs times it perfectly. The ball hit Anthony Allen on the hands. A fraction of a second later, it was Michael Downs' turn.
2nd and 10 at the 37. That's the clock. Archer in trouble. Gets it off to Allen, who is hit by Bates as he goes down at the 45-yard line. Randy White put the good pressure on Archer, and now a timeout called by the Falcons.
Randy White. They look like one and the same.
An old Pittsburgh Steeler tradition, long before they became winners. Riggs and Andrews. The backs. Gerald Riggs crosses midfield and has a first down into Dallas territory, and the Falcons lining up in a hurry. Lockhart and Walls make the tackle. Clock continues to run. Atlanta still has a timeout left. And Archer will stop it with that pass. Actually, Ron Middleton was in the direction of the throw, and the crowd is yelling for a grounding call. And so is Ernie Staudner, and he is hot now.
Well, Ernie ought to know better than that. Ron Middleton was very close, only a couple of yards away, and that was far from being a flagrant intentional grounding.
So with 14 seconds to go, Dan, and the ball at the 46.